Hi, I'm Jillian.
I'm Jeremy, and I'm an HS warrior. Come with us as we bring you warrior stories from around the world.
Let's go.
My name is Rebeka WOELKERS, and I am an American HS warrior.
Rebeka, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being our fourth HS warrior to share your story and your bravery. We can't wait to be able to hear what you've gone through and share some tips with our team and what you're most passionate about. But let's start off by talking about your story. Can you tell me a bit about how old were you when you were diagnosed?
Sure, yeah. So I was 22 when I was diagnosed, but my symptoms started when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
So right when I hit puberty, and I'd kind of be like, Mom, I have this weird bump, what's going on? It hurts, and she'd just be like, oh, well, it's just a boil, it'll go away, and every year, like women, we have gynecologist appointments,
Sure.
right? And so I'd go to the gynecologist and be like, I have these weird bumps and I don't know what's going on. And they just kind of be like, well, they'd shrug it off. And they just say, it is what it is. It wasn't until I had a flare that came up and kind of drained and stuff, and then it wouldn't close, and I got concerned, and I went to my doctor, and I'd already been researching.
Okay.
And I found out about hidradenitis suppurativa, and I was like, okay, I think I might have this. And I finally, told the doctor about it, and he was like, yeah, I have patients with HS, and this is totally HS, so.
But it was you bringing it. It wasn't like, hey, this is what it is when your doctor saw it.
Yeah, I was self-diagnosed at that point, pretty much.
Do you know what stage you are?
My doctor said I'm about a stage 2.
Okay, just to kind of calibrate folks into the level of severity that you have to deal with. Are the resources here in Seattle plentiful? How are the resources here in Seattle?
Doctors here generally seem more familiar with HS. Like I've thankfully only had to go to the urgent care one time for a flare that was infected. I had cellulitis.
Oh boy.
It was pretty nasty. The doctor knew what HS was. They, numbed the area before they drained it. They treated me with a lot of care and empathy, which I hear in a lot of support groups isn't always the case, unfortunately.
Oh.
So I've been very fortunate in that way.
Okay.
But as far as specialists go, I've looked into it and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot in the area.
Okay.
So it's kind of similar to other areas where
Sure.
it's not as much as could be.
It's unfortunate that we have heard that time and time again. The resources for HS broadly aren't as plentiful as we need them to be.
Right.
What's been your biggest challenge dealing with HS, living with HS?
Honestly, I would say it's my self-esteem and the way it affects my mental health. Growing up as a young woman and discovering who I am, dating, having sex, it's always been in the back of my head, are they gonna think I have an STD?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be like, what the fuck, and be freaked out? And thankfully I've been very fortunate and I've only had one issue in a relationship where my partner brought it up, but it was more of an emotional abuse thing rather than a, one-on-one encounter.
Yeah. Not meant to be.
Yeah, so thankfully I, haven't had that issue, but it has really affected my mental health in that way.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Are there any, as you've experienced over the years dealing with HS, are there any tips on how you've thrived, how you've been able to live the best life that you can having HS that you can share?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a very long journey that's still ongoing of just loving my body and recognize, there's been a lot of moments where I'm like, why was I born with this?
Yeah.
Why is this my life? Why can't I just be normal? It's a constant battle that I still struggle with, but I also try to remind myself in those moments that, this is my body that has loved me and supported me through so many things and is still here to support me every day when I wake up and I'm breathing,
What
right?
great
And
perspective.
I try to remind myself of that, and also herbal remedies have been something that I've really tried to find, what they say in the herbal medicine community as herbal allies,
Okay.
right?
I like that, herbal allies.
Yeah, and so I make my own salve with turmeric and chamomile, and calendula, as well as cannabis.
Okay.
Specifically Rick Simpson oil, which is a highly concentrated cannabis oil.
Yeah, we're familiar.
yeah.
And has that been effective for you?
It's kept me out of the hospital multiple times.
Wow.
When I have a flare that's, especially with the swelling and the redness, if I apply that and I just put a Band-Aid over it and let it sit for 24 to 48 hours, it's almost totally gone.
We've heard a lot about how effective it can be, so it's really helpful to hear how you create your own. We're gonna have to dig a little bit on that because every story that we share, the tips that people offer on how they've been able to live with HS, we like to put those online so that others have access to it. Because as you know, there isn't any one-size-fits-all protocol for how you treat this. So people are struggling to find anything that works.
Right, yeah, totally. And it's something that, you know, I worked at a CBD store for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And that started because I fell in love with medicinal cannabis. And I was like, this is such a world that could be opened up for so many more things on top of pain, right? And on top of trauma and on top of PTSD. And I asked some people in the community who worked in cannabis, like, hey, have you ever applied Rick Simpson oil topically? And they were like, no, that wouldn't work. And totally just shut it out as a potential. And then I Googled it and I started researching a little bit and I noticed some people were mixing it with, you know, coconut oil and diluting it.
What a great option that's natural. And where do you find it? I mean, is it one of those things you can't talk about, or is RSO readily available?
Well, it's legal here. So cannabis being legal here really opens up the market for opportunities. Yeah, so here I can just go to a dispensary. Sometimes it's hard to find. I like to buy a CBD concentrated Rick Simpson oil. So I like the higher CBD, higher CBG content. It's really great for pain and inflammation. The THC also helps with pain, but I find that higher CBD content is really important. I have found there's a company actually called Lazarus Naturals that actually makes a Rick Simpson oil that is CBD only. So it is legal in other states where cannabis isn't. That I've been recommending to folks who aren't in legal states, but you know.
Are you willing to share your recipe for your special RSO salve, or however you call it, that has been working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had some friends who use it for pain and stuff additionally, besides, you know, skin conditions, that have been like, you should sell this, and I don't really want to because I think medicine should be available to everyone.
Wow,
and, so yeah, it's basically like half to a quarter cup cannabis, or not cannabis, wow. Half to a quarter cup coconut oil, and then I use an entire, it's about 1 gram of Rick Simpson oil. It's what comes in the syringe. And then I also add usually probably about 10 drops of calendula. I use 5 to 10 drops of chamomile. I usually add in a little bit of lavender, usually about maybe a quarter dropper of the oil. Then I also use rose oil, rose hip oil specifically, which is great for scarring. And I use about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 drops of that. And then I use turmeric as well. I usually use about 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon because it is really strong.
Is this the powdered form?
Yes.
Or everything you've mentioned so far are oils, extracts, and then the turmeric is
a powder form.
Got it.
Right. Then I first will melt down the coconut oil, then I add the RSO and let that kind of blend together, and then I add everything else. I use a double boiler method, so I use like a Pyrex dish on top of like a saucepan that has water in it. And once I have everything combined, I usually let it sit for about 2.5 to 3 hours on low, just to let it all kind of come together. Then I pour it into a container and I put it in the fridge to set.
That's great. Thank you for your willingness to share that with everyone.
Yeah, no
Honestly,
problem.
I bet a lot of people in states that can buy RSO are going to go out to get it. Okay, switching over to what Jeremy and I think is a fun topic, which is your passions. We feel strongly that HS shouldn't define a person, but the things that they feel passionate about, their activities, do. And we would love to hear about your passions, Rebeka.
Sure, yeah. So I have a lot of passions. I'm also ADHD, so I'm kind of all over the place with what I love and what I do. Obviously, something big for me is nature. It's why I love Washington State. I love to get outside. I love to hike. Even just coming out and reading a book is really nice, being outdoors.
You're in a perfect place for that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, totally. It's great. I love living here. This has been huge for me. And nature is a really big inspiration for me in my art. So I write poetry and prose, and also some essay writing as well. And a lot of that I draw on nature and its resiliency, as well as its cyclical. I mean, the nature of the exactly.
The cyclical nature of nature.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I really draw on that to kind of for markers of my life. How I'm feeling during the springtime might be different than how I feel in the winter, and I've noticed a lot of that has to do with the cycles of nature.
Have you found that self-reflection to be helpful for you mentally when you're going through a hard time? You have these passions that really help you put yourself in check mentally. Physically, then it translates to?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as we know, stress is a big factor in HS. So for me, having an outlet is a huge way to manage my stress and manage the feelings that come up for me, you know. I find like sometimes in my Facebook memories, something that I wrote will pop up, like that I wrote, you know, a year ago, and I'm like, oh my God, this totally applies to my life right now. I'm so glad I wrote this because it's reminding myself that, hey, like you've been here before and you've survived this once, you can survive it again.
What
right?
a wonderful reflection.
So it's really helpful.
So even if someone wasn't naturally inclined to be able to write poetically and write poetry and prose, even writing in a journal sounds like maybe a good way to self-reflect back on some of these harder times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you be willing to share one of your poems with us?
I would love that. Yeah, that'd be great. The air is alive with energy, folding and unfolding in on itself. I am reminded of flowers, folding at every sunset, unfurling each sunrise. In the warmth of the coming spring, the grass shivers beneath my feet. It feels like 1,000 bumblebee wings. They carry me through cumulus clouds, over twisted branches of forest, sparkling sea waters whose mysteries remain to this day. We cut clean through the clouds into another place entirely, where the vibrations of the planet are written in the sky, where when my hand brushes leaves, it picks up their stories. They infuse my soul with songs and memories, pieces of times, lives I've lived before this one. I fall back into the flower beds, drunk on the sound of the floral laughter, the stories of the leaves, the whispers of the stones, the soothing sighs of the river, the hum of the planetary chorus surrounding me. As the wheel turns and the sun returns to the place of my birth, I let myself be consumed with the season of fire. I let the flames lick me up, reduce me to ash, the soil and the insects take me. I'm blooming, becoming.
You're so incredibly talented.
Oh, thank you. I started writing when I was in high school and I was really struggling.
Oh no.
And my high school guidance counselor handed me a journal and was like, just write down how you're feeling.
Aww.
Like it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be publish worthy, right? Just like write things down and get it out. And it was really for me a huge turning point.
What great advice that was. So you're in a natural setting, you love nature, art, various forms of art. One of those, I believe, is in the instrumental realm, right?
Yeah, I started singing when I was a little kid. I grew up Catholic and I would sing in church, and I just fell in love with it. You know, I would just sing whatever I was feeling, whatever I was thinking.
A natural
all
performer.
the time. You know, just sitting around the house and I just sing. And then
That's great.
Yeah, and I started writing music in high school. I taught myself piano. I started playing piano and I was in choir, and so I'd perform classically as well. And then I started learning guitar at 19. And that has been for me a really big catalyst in writing my own music and using that as like another outlet for me.
You have so much that makes you you, and that is just really inspiring. And as part of this video, we want to be able to see you doing some of these things. So I'm excited to hear you play guitar.
Into the sunrise, if it means finding that light, I will not give in to the dark. I will not be torn apart. Oh, thank you.
Out of all the different passions that you have, they range from nature, art, performance, and then there's physical side. You have some physical activities that you like to do as well.
I do, yeah. I'm very physical. I played sports all through middle school. I started, I swam, I played volleyball, I did cheerleading, I did track.
You're an inspiration.
Because I'm very hyperactive, so my parents were probably like, we don't know what the hell to do with this person, because I was also unmedicated. So I was just like all the time, high energy. And so as I've gotten older, that's, kind of narrowed down, but I do strength training and I also rollerblade, which I love to do. Usually I do about 5-6 miles at a time on a good day when it's nice like this.
Yep.
Just to get out and get out of my head. It's really meditative, honestly.
And the salve that you had mentioned earlier helps keep things at bay, or you rollerblade when you can. You basically figure out how to work your passions around your HS.
Right.
And you seem like you have so many to pick from that if you didn't feel like being active, you could come sit at a beach, you could enjoy different things depending on how you feel.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really nice to have so many dynamic things kind of in my roster.
You're really an inspiration, honestly. I'm feeling like I need to pick up some more habits. To wrap up our time together, could you please share what you'd like the other HS warriors in the community to hear? What would you like to leave them with?
Sure. You are stronger than you think. You are a beautiful person who deserves love and dignity and care. And you survived this once and you'll survive it again.
That was beautiful, honestly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Virtual hug.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, honestly, for being with us. You've made quite an effort to come and be here today,
I'm
and
happy
your
to be here.
bravery is inspiring, so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.